Good morning, friends. Rachel here again, and we're carrying on in Luke chapter 8. Did you know that when you have eyewitnesses of a crime or an accident, that their accounts will always differ slightly? It's not because they're lying, but it's because we all see things from a different angle, from a unique place, and filtered through like a unique lens. Our perspective. I love how we see this with the four Gospels. Each of the writers telling us the good news of the story of Jesus, and yet each with their own unique emphasis. We all do this. Our view is not simply a recording of what we see with our eyes and hear with our ears, but it's filtered through our interpretation based on our knowledge of how the world works, our core beliefs, our unconscious biases, and what psychologists call our schemas. These can radically affect how we remember what we've seen and what things we think are important or not. Today we're carrying on in Luke chapter 8, and and I was struck how Jesus observes and interprets his context in the light of who he is, and how his perspective on this couple of situations is radically different from the people around him. Firstly, in verse 43, in the middle of a crowd, a desperate woman reaches out and touches the hem of his garment. And when Jesus asks, "Who touched me?" Peter says, "Master, the crowds are surrounding you and pressing in on you." It's been a long time, hasn't it, since we've been in the situation of being in a crowd, perhaps at a gig or a sports match or a conference. But that feeling of being squashed and bumped and hemmed in by people. Yet Jesus knew someone had reached out and touched him with intent, in faith. No one else in the crowd saw her. No one else knew her need. But Jesus didn't miss her. He doesn't ever miss faith. Hebrews 11 verse 6 says, "Without faith is it impossible to please God. For whoever would draw near to God must believe he exists and that he rewards those who seek him." She had come hidden and in secret. If anyone in the crowd had seen her or known, they would have been alarmed because she was considered unclean and outcast. But Jesus didn't miss her in the crowd. He noticed her when no one else did. Not just another bump in the crowd, but one who needed him, one who reached out in faith, one that he called daughter. She is immediately healed from a long-term, hopeless situation with one moment near Jesus. Before Jesus called her daughter, this woman had been suffering for 12 years. Interestingly, that's the same length of time that Jairus' daughter had been alive. And now suddenly, this little girl is suddenly taken desperately ill. And before Jesus can get to her home, she dies. Jairus' housewords send word, it's too late. Let's not bother with Jesus anymore. There's no hope now. But Jesus tells Jairus, don't be afraid, she'll be well. Again, Jesus' perspective is different from theirs. He arrives at their home to find the mourners assembled, weeping and wailing and grieving their loss. From their perspective, there is nothing more to be done. From their experience, death is the end. It's not a fixable problem. They laugh at Jesus when he says that she's not dead, she's just asleep. They know the difference between sleep and death. They know this girl isn't breathing. They have been here before. Loss, grief, the end of life. They know the prospects, but Jesus is not looking from their limited physical viewpoint. He knows that their perspective is restricted. Their view is short-sighted. Their experience is limited. He, on the other hand, is the resurrection and the life. He is the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. He was there when God breathed life into the lungs of Adam. He is the eternal one who doesn't see death as a full stop. To him, death is a temporary state, a nighttime to which, as Zechariah prophesies, he is the sunrise. He takes the little girl by the hand and he pulls her from death to life. 3 times in the gospel, we see Jesus rise someone from the dead. the widow of Nain's son in chapter 7. Here, Jairus' daughter, and then in John's Gospel, when he calls Lazarus out of the tomb. Each of these miracles is in response to a loved one's faith. Each one of them speaks to us about Jesus' ultimate reason for coming, to defeat sin and death. And through his own resurrection, to make it possible for us to know that death is not anymore the end, but merely a little nap before we get to enjoy real life with him forever. It's easy to think that our limited view and the way our experiences have shaped our lives is that this is all there is. But every eyewitness is biased and every viewpoint is limited except Jesus. Jesus sees things differently from us. He doesn't miss the individual in the crowd. He doesn't see our need as impossible. He doesn't see our unsolved problems as hopeless. You might be facing difficult, disappointing or hopeless situations. Jesus doesn't see your circumstances the way you do. Faith is looking for Jesus in your circumstances and allowing him to change our perspective. I love that worship song, God, I Look to You. It says, I won't be overwhelmed. Give me vision to see things like you do. God, I look to you. You're where my help comes from. Give me wisdom. You know just what to do. That's my prayer for us this morning. God, we look to you in our need. We look to you in our circumstances. We ask for you to give us a gift of faith today to see things the way you do. Amen.